Here we are. Hi. Okay, let me greet the people, and then we're going to have a chat, okay?
All right. Greet the people.
Hey, people.
The person?
Hello, everybody. I'm Mary Laura Philpott, a writer from here in Nashville. And on behalf of Humanities Tennessee, I'm delighted to welcome everybody to this virtual party. If you are watching on Facebook Live or YouTube and you have a question you would like answered during this session, please feel free to type your question in the comments and we will get to as many of those as we can. I also want to mention that every time you buy a book from the official bookseller of the festival, Parnassus Books, an angel gets her wings and your purchases help to keep the festival free. So look for those book buying links at the top of the chat. And if you really want to go the extra mile and support this nonprofit festival, you can do that on the Southern Festival of Books app or website. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed, beautiful, and hilarious guest of honor. You know Helen Ellis as the author of both fiction, such as Eating the Cheshire Cat and American Housewife, and nonfiction, including her smashing essay collections, Southern Lady Code, and Bring Your Baggage and Don't Pack Light. People magazine says, Helen Ellis is as original as she is hilarious, and I could not agree more. Hi, Helen.
Mary Laura Philpott.
How are you?
I feel that I'm virtually there, so I have to say your full name.
You do.
Yes.
You do. Are you in your gorgeous apartment with that perfect wall color behind you?
I am in the Coral Lounge, as I like to call it. And yes, I am in New York City. And right outside my window is New York City, Upper East Side, and scaffolding. All the buildings on the Upper East Side are covered in scaffolding, and we are on the second floor. So if you look out my window, you see about 12 tons of bricks, a wheelbarrow, and an occasional raccoon.
Everything. This party has everything. Raccoons
has everything.
And bricks. Let's start on that People magazine note, original and hilarious. Where does your sense of humor come from? And how have you honed it over the years? How has it gotten to be what it is?
That is a good question. I am not the funny one in my family. There are
really?
Yes, I was the quiet one in the family, the studious one in the family, the reader in the family. And then I just started talking outside the family. I don't know where it came from. I have such a vivid memory of doing a reading of a piece I wrote that got published in the New York Times called Making a Marriage Magically Tidy. And it was the first time I ever wrote nonfiction. And the assignment was, write about something that embarrassed you. So I thought, well, the most embarrassing thing I ever did was when I was 24 years old and a complete and utter slob. I walked out of my apartment with a maxi pad on the back of my coat. And it was used.
Nice.
And no one noticed until my date gave me a hug and peeled it off like he was in a burlesque show in hell. And so I read about that and it got a really big response. And I thought, oh, well, sure, I'll write more true stories. And then I just faked it. I just am continuing to fake it. And I guess that's funny.
Well, you mentioned you just started talking to people outside the family. I wonder if you have had a similar experience to what I've had. But I also come from a family where everyone is funny and everyone's kind of twisted, but we don't think of ourselves as twisted. It's when other people hear us and they go,
really?
Nuts. Yeah. Was it when you would say things that you thought were perfectly normal and other people would go, wait, what?
I think part of that is the Southern Gothicness of it all. We do enjoy the macabre. The best times I've ever had have been at funerals. We're always trying to sort of one up each other and we think dark things are funny. Like my father thought it was the funniest thing in the world when I was 13 years old to hire 2 actors from the University of Alabama to fake his death at my birthday party. And we all thought that was hilarious. Nobody called the police. Nobody recorded it. Nobody went to therapy. And I tell that story now, and I do it in Southern Lady Code. I write about it there, and people come up to me saying, what? What? Yeah, I'm like, oh, well, as my father said, you have to make your own fun in life.
Right. So you're just like,
internet.
Dads do. Common things like hiring actors. at your birthday party. I don't know about you if you've encountered this, but I think there's a common misperception that humor writing is easy, that it's work to write drama, but it's not work to write a funny book. But writing, of course, is work, especially funny writing. So for the writers among us, I would love to talk a little bit about your process.
I will tell you, so I have had the same writing group for 25 years. I met Ann Napolitano, who is most currently the author of Dear Edward, and Hannah Tinty, who is most currently the author of The 12 Lives of Samuel Hawley, over 25 years ago in graduate school. And our teacher at the time was Danny Shapiro, author of Inheritance and millions of others. And she wrote fiction and nonfiction. And she said, get yourself a writing group. So I do what teacher says, and we form this group. So the way this works with the nonfiction, and I had this mantra even for this book, which is different book, different process. And Anne and Hannah have known me for 25 years, so they have heard most of these stories. Even if it's something that's just happened yesterday, I'm going to tell them first before I write it to sort of see how they, react. But the way it works is I write it all out and make as many jokes as I possibly can. And then they or my husband will say to me, not everyone will get that sense of humor, Helen. Maybe you should cut that line. Maybe you should cut. But, I wrote a piece recently I'm writing a new book, and I wrote a piece about sort of death planning, how when you're married, you sort of figure out what you're going to do with yourself. And I am my parents' plug puller. And my sister, says she's worried that I'm going to just walk into a hospital room and yank out the first cord I see. And she's going to say, Helen, that's the air conditioner. It's not, Mama. And see, I think that is hilarious, but not everyone will think that is hilarious. So it's a lot of sort of me saying everything I can and then paring it back.
I think that is hilarious, but it may be because I am also the designated plug puller in my family.
Yes. Yeah.
So I get it. Are you somebody who carries around like a little notebook, Sedaris style, just jotting things down all the time?
Well, when I read, I watched his masterclass. I'm a huge Sedaris fan. And he named the exact kind of notebook that he uses. And I bought the exact kind of notebook that he used. I've never used it. I'm someone who buys diaries and then never writes my diaries. I do have, it's called Write in the Rain, RITE, little top flip spiral notebooks, like a reporter's notebook. And it's water.
Get wet. Yeah.
Get wet. And I have black wing pencils, or I have red line pencils from Nashville, Tennessee, and I write in pencils on the grid, and it's usually just like a running to-do list, but ever so often I will write down something I heard. Like I was at the Cowgirl Hall of Fame downtown having a chicken fried steak and collard greens, the only place you can get it in New York City, and I overhear this. Sometimes I'll hush my own husband so I can eavesdrop on the conversation beside me, and I heard this girl say something, and I had to write it right down. I believe what she said was, she became everything she shit on in the second grade. I'm like, that's amazing. Gold. That's gold. Excuse me. That's gold. But usually I don't. Usually I will write about something that I keep telling the story over and over again. And if I keep telling a story over and over again, there's a reason. Right. And that's how I do nonfiction now. I'll start to write that piece out and figure out why I'm telling it as I'm writing it. Mm-hmm. Not so much.
You told me once, I think we were having dinner in Mississippi, maybe?
Yes, probably the book festival. I barbecued here.
Yes. You told me that you send your essays one at a time to your editor. Do you still do that?
Yesterday. I'm working on a new collection about marriage. Yeah, about marriage. So, and that is part of the deal. I finished one yesterday, and quite often I'll send it to my workshop first and then do a little revision and then send it to my editor. Sometimes I think, oh, it's good to go, and I send it to both. So yes, she reads it, I revise it, and then I put it away until I have, most of the book together, and then I sort of figure out what's missing. But it's such an instant, you write essays, so what instant gratification is to just polish something and put it away.
Yes.
Enter it in my spreadsheet.
Nice.
Spreadsheet. Yes.
A little check mark.
A little check mark and a running total, because I do my contracts for word count. So at this point, I am 48% done with the new book.
Very nice.
Yes,
I'm excited.
Always a secretary.
I'm excited about that. Do you enjoy being edited?
I love it. I love it. And again, I don't know how people write novels anymore. I don't know how anybody writes and I did it 21 years ago. I published a novel 21 years ago, and I watch Ann and Hannah write novels. And so I see them doing it. But it still comes across as magic to me,
Yes.
because I really like short stories and essays, because it is such a perfect little thing. And then to have edits, whether it's add a line here or expand this or cut this out. The piece I turned in yesterday was based on 2 paragraphs that were sort of slowing down the piece before. And my editor said, you should just write a whole piece based on these 2 paragraphs.
Great. Perfect.
Yeah. Love it.
I don't know if you feel the same way. One of the things I love about the essay form is that because it has boundaries,
yeah,
I feel like I can do more than I could if you said there are no boundaries and no word limit at all, just go. I think I wouldn't know where to go. But if you go, you have this much space.
Yeah.
I immediately can start filling it, and I can go right up to the edge of where
and
I
you
know.
Can be wilder. I think we can be wilder in our personality in such a tiny little box.
Yeah.
And I love a deadline. I don't know if I could ever write a novel on a deadline or a nonfiction piece on a deadline. But with nonfiction, I love it, because I don't have to make anything up. There's a question that came up.
Oh, we do have a question.
Yeah.
Question from the audience, and I will remind everybody, you're welcome to throw questions into the comments, and we'll get to them when we can. But I'm going to go ahead and get you to answer this one, because it kind of goes with what we're talking about. Was there a particular part of the book that was more challenging to write? And why don't you answer that on behalf of
I will say
this latest book?
There were 2. So the first one was the very first piece in the book. It's a very large piece, and it's called Grown-Ass Ladies Gone Mild. And it was about my 2, I don't like to say oldest friends, dearest friends that I have had since I was in elementary school. And we went on a beach trip, get together, and one of us came with a bad mammogram diagnosis. And so I ended up writing about 3 separate trips that we took together. And it was about her overcoming the cancer. And at the same time, it was about a very dear friend of mine who had overcome a bad marriage and remarried. And so I really wanted the piece to honor them and to make them look like the badasses that they are, because you really only have one chance to make a first impression when you write about somebody that you love. So that was really difficult. And I showed it to them after I'd worked on it and revised it for months and months and months and months and months. And they didn't change a thing, which made me very happy. And the other piece that was difficult for me to write, not difficult, but I would say difficult. There's a piece called Are You There, Menopause? It's me, Helen. Because a lot of pieces, I've become very comfortable with the fact that a lot of pieces are about me being in the middle of something, and I am in perimenopause. Let me tell you all about it. And I do in the book, but it was me sort of doing an ode to Judy Blume's Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret, because that was the book that got us through menstruation, and we're all in puberty again.
Yeah. Backwards.
But we're the ones that get the mustache. And so that for me to be that vulnerable to say, this is what's happening to my body and my mind. That was difficult, not a little bit difficult, but I'm very happy that I did.
Well, you mentioned that you write about being stories where you're in the middle of something. And I feel like when I think of your perspective in stories and sort of your worldview as you tell stories, I feel like you're always paying attention to and embracing this slightly off-center part of a story. For example, you tell the story in this book about your friend having a baby, and it's not a birth story like, here's the story of this mother, or here's the story of this baby. It's the story about how you're on call for the birth of your friend's baby, and you're the backup friend on call. You weren't even the first friend on call. And that's what makes it such a great story, is that you look at this thing that's happening and you take this little angle. And I wonder if that's the way you go through life, kind of looking just to the side of where the action is, to see what's really happening that's interesting.
I think it is. Somebody asked me, now I'm at the point where everybody I know knows that I write nonfiction, and so many of my friends appear in the book. So a lot of times people will say, you can't write about this, and before they start to tell a story. Just yesterday, the day before, you can't write about this. But the thing is, usually the thing that you don't want me to write about, that you think I want to write about, I don't want to write about it. It's something that you don't think that I would want to write about, that I want to write about. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I tell people your books make a great gift, and they make a great gift, I think, for anybody of any age. But I got to tell you, for people who are anywhere near the age that we are, late 40s, early 50s, there are some golden references in your writing. You mentioned, I don't remember which essay this was in, you mentioned Chizimbop.
Oh, yes.
I haven't heard that word.
I can add it to 99.
What? And I don't even remember how it worked.
Oh, yes. These are the 1, 2, 3. This goes up to 9. These are your 10s. So like 11 plus 23 is 24.
Oh my God.
34. Yeah.
I couldn't remember exactly how it worked. I just knew when I saw the word on the page and heard it in my head, I got a kind of like ice water through my veins feeling, which now that you explain it, that's accurate, because I never did get the hang of it.
I think they tried to teach us on Zoom. I mean, the old Zoom, Zoom. Zoom. The Zoom,
the show.
Yeah.
How do you remember this stuff?
I do remember so many odd things. And a lot of times I'll write to people and say, do you remember this? You know, like especially when you talk about the party where my father, you know, has him pull a gun on all of us in the middle of the woods. I still have friends that were at that party. So I did reach out to them and say, what do you remember about this? And so a lot of it came through those friends. Or some people will not remember any of it. And God bless my mother. She says, oh, Helen Michelle, I've forgotten everything. You can write anything you want and I'll swear it happened.
She sounds delightful. I love the way you categorize people and kind of name the categories. You've got, like in this book, you identified this group of women, the ones who are just ahead of you in life by 5 to 10 years, the empty nesters.
Yes, the bridge ladies.
Yes, the bridge ladies. And you say they're fun and they're stylish and they're having a great time. And I love this line. You said, empty nesters are the new gay men of New York.
It's true.
And I'm hanging on to that, because my nest just got half emptied and I'm a little unstable. I need something to look forward to. So I'm like, I'm going to be one of the bridge ladies.
Activities, bridge. And you know, you and I met because of one of those bridge ladies, because one of the bridge ladies is Erica.
Yes.
College roommates with Ann Patchett.
Yeah.
And she and I came to Nashville for American Housewife, and all I heard was to be Mary Laura Philpott.
And then we went and got donuts.
Yes.
I remember that so well. Are you always sort of sorting and categorizing the people around you?
Yes. I title everything. I had, New York is sort of coming back to life, and we've got a very high vaccination rate up here. And most any activity you want to do, you got to, show your pass and your ID. So last week I did some activities with real people, for one of the first times. So I went out with my Classic Trashy Book Club to dinner. And then I had the puzzle posse over to work a puzzle. I title everyone.
I love it. I'm going to keep reminding everybody to type your questions in there for Helen.
But I have to tell you, so even in my telephone I
Yeah.
call it the telephone. Everybody has a code name. Do you know what your code name is?
Is it Penguin Lady?
The penguin person.
The penguin person. I remember you told me that once. And I loved it. You showed me your contact list once in your phone, and I was like, "This is utter nonsense. None of these are people's names."
The FBI watches.
Right. There you go. You got to protect your privacy.
Yes, you do.
Did you really spell Coco Chanel with 2 Ks when you worked at Chanel?
Yeah, I was tempting. I ended up being there over 10 years, but my first week on the job, I was 26, and I grew up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I don't know anything, and I had to write down that because one of the I wrote down Coco the sign language ape.
Yes. Yeah, the gorilla who learned sign language.
Never misspelled it again.
That was the big story in People magazine when we were in high school.
Oh yes,
they taught this gorilla sign language, and that was Coco.
And he had a kitten.
That's right.
And Mr. Rogers used to visit.
I remember that. Do you feel sort of sympathetic to younger people now? Like when you look at women in their 20s or anybody in their 20s or even 30s, are you like, oh?
No. In a way, I feel like, let me tell you what's ahead of you, because I really am grateful for my bridge ladies, and I'm really grateful. I was very grateful for Judy Blume when I was 10 years old to tell me what puberty was going to be like and what 7 minutes in the closet was, and what a teenage softie was, and how to we must increase our bust. And I was in my 30s. I was very grateful for Nora Ephron to tell me about my neck,
yes,
and things like that. How's it looking? And so I'm very happy to tell younger women it's gonna be okay. Here's what's coming. Hang on to your friends and hang on to your neck.
Right.
Let's ride. But but do I have empathy and sympathy? No. You're young. If I was 20 years old right now, I'd be sitting here in a bra. Only a bra. Yeah.
I do love that idea, though, of being kind of a guide for younger people. When, I'm thinking back to the early stages of book proposal time, when you have to write who is the audience for this book.
Yes.
And you have to bullet point, and you've got to think of everyone who might possibly want to read it. I remember thinking, people who are similar to me or going through my same life phase will want to read this, but also younger people who read ahead, because I used to do that. I used to read ahead.
You read 17 magazine when you were 13.
Right.
You read Cosmo when you were 17. My audience is women between the ages of 13 and 100 and gay men, and my 1% are straight men. There's 5, including my husband and my father, that read me, and I am absolutely fine with that. I don't write for them.
They have their own books about.
Yes, they have plenty of books about World War II and wrestling. Yeah.
And ships. And
yes.
boats.
Yes.
You write about how fun and meaningful it is to find my kind of people. And I don't know why this is the first thing that came to mind, but when I read that part where you were writing about, when you find your kind of people, I thought about the time you and I were at a different book festival, and it was near Halloween. It might have been the Southern Festival of Books here in Nashville, but the hosts had put out these gloves full of candy corn.
And we ate it like an udder.
Look, I went and found the picture. I don't know if this is going to come across here. I don't know if anybody can see this. That was when we both saw the glove and went, oh, let's take pictures like we're being attacked by the glove. And I knew in that moment, I
thought we were kittens at the Keats.
This is my kind of person. See, we came at it from a different way.
Yes.
But we had a good
same pose. Same
right.
pose.
Right. I love that you were just yes, of course, let's pick.
I'll have a picture with my mouth wide open.
Right.
World Wide Web. Oh,
have you met a lot of your kind of people being out on book tours and in the book world these last few years?
oh yes. I tell you, so it's the pandemic has kept us all, as you all know, virtual. But there was this bright, shining moment where in July for a weekend, I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma to Magic City Books, where they had hosted a 10:30 a.m. brunch for, I would say, 200 of my kind of people, which is middle-aged ladies, soused on mimosas. And it was like the best time of my life. And they were all coming up. And one woman came up, and I put a picture on Instagram. So my mantra, Southern Lady Code really is, if you don't have something nice to say something not so nice in a nice way. But it's also my mantra for life and for writing. And that is, be funny, be honest, be kind. And a woman at that reading came up to me after and took off her blouse to show me a tattoo that said, be sweet, be silly, be honest, be silly, be kind. Can you believe it? Anyway, so yeah, my kind of people come out of the woodwork.
That's amazing. Okay, so I'm gonna veer over into our questions in the chat for a little bit, and I'm gonna take these kind of in a different order than they're in. Do you ever deal with writer's block? Someone wants to know.
I will tell you, I dealt with it just last week. I'll tell you. So I love my writers group, who I talk to on Zoom right now every week on a Wednesday. But on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I went to the library where I write in the stacks. I sat there for 3 hours each day, and I wrote a paragraph each day. And it was so hard. I mean, it wasn't that hard. I mean, you know what I'm saying, but it was it was writer's block. And it was a paragraph, one each day. But I thought, I'm still going to show up here. And I said that to the ladies. And my friend Ann said that she had heard a writer who was a sports figure, who just came out with a book. I think she's a runner. Is this ringing any bells? Like, she's a runner, and she has a book out. It's like an adjective for the title. But she said writing is like being an athlete. There are going to be some days that are easy, and then there's going to be some days that are hard, and some days that are just like good. And so on the Thursday, I went to the library again, and I read my 3 paragraphs, and then something clicked, and I sort of wrote out like an outline for the rest of. And an outline means like, there are 4 things that are going to happen. These 4 things. And then wrote 2 pages that day, wrote 2 pages the next day, and it started to flow. But it happens, but you have to move through it, because again, you know this, Mary Laura, I had 15 years of sheer and utter failure where nobody was publishing me. And so I ain't gonna get writer's block now that I've been given, a seat back at the table. And even now, like I said earlier, my mantra is different book, different process. And what I'm doing differently this time, because I've just taught myself to write essays, is I now have like 3 or 4 going at once, which I would never do before. So I wrote a couple of paragraphs on stickers today. I'm my own teacher's pet. I wrote a few paragraphs on crazy weddings. I wrote a few paragraphs on having COVID, because we did get COVID for Christmas this year. Nice. So I've just kind of like got all those little pots going. So there's always, there's something. But yeah, it happens. But I punch through it.
I think it helps to have a couple going at one time, because then if you do get sort of blocked or scared or whatever with one, you can go to the other and kind of keep things going. And then the one that you've, turned away from keeps marinating in your head.
Yes.
As you go. Somebody wants to know, when you write about your life and friends and family, stories that involve other people, has there ever been a moment that you've written about, or a story you've written about, that other people were unhappy with you for sharing?
No, absolutely not. Because for me, I only write from a place of love. because there's a lot of things to write about, and there are a lot of bad things that have happened to me, that have happened to others that I could write about. But I'm 50 years old, and I don't want to spend my time doing that. I don't want to be in a sad place. I want to be in a happy place. So if I write about you, Mary Laura, I'm going to write about you being a badass. I'm going to write from a place of, look at what my friend just did. Like, I never knew I was going to write about my 50-year-old friend having a baby on her own. But when I got that call, I went in with my notebook. I'm like, this is amazing. This is amazing. And, yes, ever so often someone will say, and I will give the piece to you. Like, I will finish the piece, I will revise it, and then I will give it to you. And I will say, if you want me to change your name, I'll change your name. And that has happened once or twice, just for privacy's sake. Sometimes people want to change their names, but not that often. Or if you want me to revise it in any way, or if you want me not to publish it at all, that's fine. I have one friend who appears in every book who doesn't want me to use her name, and she's just my friend in Florida.
I love it. I love
it. And like in Southern Lady Code, I wrote about, but one of the harder things I wrote about in Southern Lady Code was my suspicion that my grandfather, my mother's father, was gay. And I came home and I read the piece to her in front of my sister and my father, and she laughed and laughed. And I said, do you think, he would be okay with it? Oh, he would just love to be the center of attention. And yes, you're absolutely right. So I always give it to you first. But and just yesterday I said to a friend, am I right? This was just for a sentence. I said to this couple, am I right that you take walks every night, and did you tell me that you take walks every night and you bring a bad thing that happened to you and two good things that happened to you to talk about? And they said, no.
I made that up.
I said, did I make that up? It wasn't us. And then I said, well, why do you walk every day? And then they told me, and so I revised it and put that in. I'll make it work. I would make it work.
On that note of writing and trying to write from a happy place or write from a good place, somebody wants to know, when it's a bleak time, such as this past year and a half that we've lived through, is it harder than usual to find the humor in things?
No, it's easy for me because that's how I cope. And I think that's how a lot of Southerners cope. I need to laugh. Like, even like with the very first piece in Bring Your Baggage, it is about my friend battling cancer. She goes through, 28 radiation treatments, 16 chemotherapy treatments, a double mastectomy. She goes through a lot. And she would say, just call me and say, make me laugh. Just make me laugh. And that's the one thing I could do. And for me in the pandemic, I found myself watching a lot of stand-up. I love stand-up, and I found myself watching a lot of that just to laugh. So yeah, I find myself cracking jokes to relieve stress in troubling times. So it's just the way that I cope.
Yeah.
So it's easy.
Well, I think if you're
inappropriate. It may be extremely inappropriate, but it's what makes me laugh.
Yeah, well, and if you're attuned to dark humor,
yeah,
dark times are going to be very rich territory.
Yes.
Someone asked if you have ever considered doing more podcasting because they loved your podcast that you did before the last book.
No, absolutely not. No. I enjoyed the process because I enjoyed sort of writing quickly for the podcast. But it's a lot of work, and it is trying to sort of grow a whole new audience.
Yeah.
And I really like sort of the privacy of the book form. But a lot of things from that podcast wound up sort of weaving themselves into, other pieces. So it was great, but no, my sister has a podcast, and everybody should listen to that. It was just written up in the Times, called One Bad Mother, and it's hilarious and awesome. And she's been doing it 11 years, and she knows what it is to do a podcast.
That's fantastic. Okay, as expected, we have a request for writing tips.
Okay. Here, one of my writing tips.
Yeah.
I like a black wing pencil. No, this is what I do every day. I work the crossword puzzle first. At the New York Times crossword puzzle. So Monday through Thursday, it's usually straight and pen, and then I'll use a pencil and then go over it in pen. But it is a way of getting my mind to relax. It's a way to sort of boost your vocabulary. And it's just a way to sort of get yourself thinking. So and it's a way of allowing yourself to make mistakes, like writing in pencil. You write the answer in, and if it's wrong, you erase it, and you're more apt to do that in your writing life. So I do that. And then the other big tip I have is I have that Microsoft Freedom. Yeah, and I go to a library where there is no internet connection up in the stacks, and I set that Freedom for 2 hours. And even if, like earlier last week, when I just wrote a paragraph each day, I sat there for 2 to 3 hours. And sometimes I was just reading. Sometimes I was working the crossword puzzle. Sometimes I was painting my fingernails illegally in the library. Shush. But you keep your butt in the seat. So those are, you just have to. And sometimes that time is like 15 minutes, even just 15 minutes, just to get yourself going. It's easier to rewrite something when you have something, than to scratch.
You got to get something on the page.
Yeah.
Let's finish our time talking about what you're reading, what you're watching. I want to know what's in your pop culture diet.
Okay. I'm going to tell you everything. Yes. All right. Well, I'm a member of a Classic Trashy Book Club, so I love talking about that. My Classic Trashy Book Club, we have read 80 books thus far, and that means we read books that are banned, burned, labeled as chick lit, most likely made into a miniseries in the 70s or 80s.
Fantastic.
So we just read, so we read like Judith Krantz, Sidney Sheldon, Dominic Dunn, and we just read The Heiress by Janet Daly, who I had never read before. Texas Sisters Inherit a Ranch. There's a lot of horses and nipple play. It was very enjoyable. And now through my great campaigning, we're getting ready to read Rosemary's Baby because it is Halloween, and it is one of my favorite movies of all time. So we're going to read that. And then for like what I'm watching, again, it's like 1982 in this apartment. Everybody has their coping method, and I have been watching. I'm in season 7 of 9 seasons, 30 episodes a season, 1981 to 1989, Dynasty. I was never allowed to watch these things as a child, so I am all up in Alexis and Crystal and Sammy Joe, and everybody has like a flat ass and no plastic surgery, and everybody's in furs, and everybody slaps everybody, and I love it. I love it. And then more contemporarily, I'm listening to. I always have an audiobook. Thank you, Libro, via Parnassus. Thank you very much. I'm listening to Lauren, H-O-G-H. Is that
Lauren Huff? Yes.
Yes, Leaving Isn't the Hardest Part. And who is it? Kate Blanchett reads it.
Yes. Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. I love it. So I'm listening to that. And what else am I just said something else. Oh, and then this afternoon I started watching Midnight Mass. Have you heard of this? It's a horror show.
I have heard of it, but I have not started paying attention to it and watching it myself.
That is what's happening this week in my little.
You can handle horror. I'm not so much a horror person.
I love it.
It gives me nightmares.
It is the season. Yeah. It is Halloween season.
So you mentioned Libro FM, and I want to give them another plug because they are fantastic. That is the way to listen to audiobooks.
Yes.
That supports independent bookstores, and their app is really nice. And once you buy the audiobook from them, you own it, and you can listen to it as many times as you want on any app. It's not like it disappears back into the cloud.
And you get the money. Yes. My money, which is what I want. Yeah. Exactly.
Do you ever listen to fiction as an audiobook?
Oh, yes. Yes. I'm listening to Colson Whitehead's the Harlem Shuffle. I'm doing a back and forth. I'm reading and I'm listening. And I listened to the Nickel Boys, and I thought, because sometimes I think, oh, this is going to be hard. I need to listen to it while I work at home. And I thought that was a great narrator. And this is a very good narrator as well. And I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And that is through Parnassus and Libro. Thank you very much.
Tell the people how you came to be Colson Whitehead's poker coach.
Well, so I guess he was in sort of a low stakes game with other writers in Brooklyn, and he wanted to go play the World Series. So he's looking for a coach. And my friend Hannah Tinty, the best gift she ever gave me, was saying, "Would you coach him?" I'm like, hell yes. And I think to myself, it really affected me, like in so many ways that he will never know. It really affected me. One, I was coaching him to play in the World Series, and it made me play more poker because I wanted to be a really good example. And then he wrote about me as I write about my friends. And he sent me the book, the manuscript saying, "Is there anything you want to change?" And I said, "Absolutely not. I look like a badass." And that's exactly what I want you to feel, when I write about you. And the third thing is, I was coaching him, I want to say in 2010, 11, and I wasn't writing at all. And I was being introduced at literary parties as, "Oh, this is Colson's poker coach." And I was introduced to my editor at Scribner. I hadn't seen her in like 12, 15 years.
Wow.
And, Nan, this is Helen Ellis, Colson's coach. She's like, "I know who this is," but I hadn't published in 15 years, and I didn't even claim to be a writer anymore. And I thought, well, if I'm brave enough to walk into the Rio with 8,000 men and think I can play with the big boys, then I can write a story. And it really just reminded me that I was brave. So that's how it all happened.
I love that story. That's a good story to close on here. I think we're right up against our time limit. So I'm going to give everybody these final reminders, and then I think our producer will come back and roll some little closing thing. But first of all, I want to thank you for making time to do this.
Thank you for making time to do this.
This is so fun. And I'm going to remind everybody who is with us to grab your copy of Bring Your Baggage and Don't Pack Light from wherever the link is. I think it's in the chat. Just, go to Parnassus Books, buy it there, buy it in the store, buy it online. And do keep an eye on the festival's website, because there are more sessions like this. I mean, not as great as this, but in this format, happening online for the next 3 weeks. I think.
While you're at it, pre-order Mary Laura Philpott's new book. Am I right? It's called Bomb Shelter. Am I right?
Bomb Shelter. You got it.
Great title and a great cover.
Good job. Thank you. Okay, so I think I'm going to say goodbye, and at some point the screen will change. So we're just going to wave until it goes away.